Alright, well, we're going to start reassembling this Underdrive unit, and this is going to kind of be cobbled together in little pieces at a time, because I'm going to have to gather up some fiber thrust washers yet to go on here and things like that, and I'm taking my time and just putting it back together. The only thing I'm really going to assemble right now is the 3 castings together, and they're just held by 1 pin. So, you know, I've documented when I took it apart, and it's not really that complicated assembly, but everything does have to be adjusted with everything else. So I'm just going to take my time, and there again I've got the advantage that I can go back and look at my other Sheldon and make sure I'm putting it together right, because I'm under the assumption that it's been assembled right since I've had it and run it for years in the same configuration. This is just quite literally simple. This is the bottom part, motor mounts underneath. This casting will sit right here, and then this casting sets up here just like that. So we're just installing the pin that goes through the back, maybe, if we can get everything aligned. So I just wanted to start making some progress on this, because I've had these parts sitting for a while and I'm waiting for this and waiting for that, and if I just sit and continue to wait for stuff, I'm going to be waiting forever. So let's go ahead and start putting this together. And once these parts are on, and I was having trouble deciding how I wanted to assemble it. I wanted to put shafts through with the bearings and things like that, and I don't think so. I think the best thing to do is just get the castings assembled so they're together as a unit, and then start adding the rest of the components on. And then once we get it pretty well assembled, and we won't be able to do the final setup for the pulleys and stuff, because the headstock belts, or the belts for the headstock, go down and wrap around one of these pulleys. So like I say, for right now, and maybe for today, this is all we're going to do, is just get this pin in. But at least it's a reference if somebody has some questions as to how these go together. And see, I may go back and shim these, because even though they're not supposed to be a pivoting position, once they get set in place, there's a whole lot of play in this. So I may I've got a whole lot of space in between the castings, and it does show 1 5/8 washer, so that may be where it goes, is between these two pieces here. But if that's the case, why, we're not wanting to go together right at all here. End up and scar up all my nice new paint. Okay, that goes there. Let's get a punch to help align that a little bit. It's way too hot to spend too much time out here today. There we go. Okay, that installs just like that. Now, the parts diagram does show a 5/8 washer. I think it's a 5/8 washer. Shows a number 37, which is a 5/8 washer. So, and we've got lots and lots of space over here, so I'm going to assume, never good to assume, but we're going to assume anyway, that we're going to put a washer on this side as a spacer to help hold alignment. I don't quite have room for two 5/8 washers or two of that thickness. So there's two thinner ones. Let's see how they set in there. Well, looks like we're only going to get one in there. So let's take this thicker one. Really looks like we should be able to get a second one in there. But maybe not. And the washer we're installing is right down in here, in between this outer casting and the one next to it. Huh. Oh, that's the line right there. That should go right in. There we go, just like that. So there's the way those three go. Now, in the back here, we've got two cotter pins. One right there. And one right there. We can set those in place in just a minute, but if we take this, this will set in there just like that. And we're going to temporarily put this pin in, maybe, if it'll align. Paint buildup. Built-up paint. Okay, and there's our adjustments to engage and disengage. This attaches to the bracket on the bottom side of the cabinet. There's a rod that goes down there. There's an adjustment for up and down for one of the belts, and then this disengages to change your belt speed, change pulley location. There's tighten down to engage right there, and that loosens belt tension there. That goes there. Now this one is the other adjustment, and I've got to paint this up, clean this up and paint it up, but it bolts down into here. This comes up through there. Don't have enough room here, and this gives us motor belt tension. I believe it's the motor mounts here, the pulley mounts right here for, is that right? No, that's not right. This big pulley mounts out here on this shaft, and then there's the smaller pulley that mounts down underneath or it's a motor shaft that comes out with the pulley on it, and that adjusts your belt tension itself between the motor and this shaft, and then these pulleys adjust your speeds. So anyway, it's a lot more manageable when you just take it one piece at a time. This shaft has, what does this shaft have? Okay, this shaft just goes through and has pulleys here. Bottom pulley will mount that way on this shaft, and the upper pulley mounts up here on this shaft for our intermediate belt tensions, or our intermediate speeds. And then this pulley mounts right in here, and it runs the pulleys from our belt to our headstock. Anyway, that's what we've got for right now. I'll gather up some fiber washers. We'll start assembling the rest of this and come back and look at it as we assemble it. Alright, so just a little more progress. I'm going to go ahead and put our stud down in here, at least temporarily. Now, a lot of this stuff I'm probably going to disassemble at some point and change things up, like the shaft that goes down in here. If I'm running bluing tanks and it's convenient, I'll probably run these through the bluing tanks just to freshen them up, give them a little more protection, and make them look, you know, give them a little bit more pizzazz, I think. So first thing I'm going to do is just bend over my cotter pins I've got right here very quickly, which I know we don't have a real good view of this, but I think you can figure out how to bend a cotter pin back. And I just want enough to hold these. I'm not going to completely bend them back, at least right now. It's not necessary anyway, but there again, there may be the possibility that I want to disassemble them again, so. Okay, well, that's enough to hold them anyway. So, the way this goes in is it sits down in here. There's a bolt that's got a notch out of it here on this side. It goes through this way, and I've either got to figure out where the one was that came out of here. It's threaded in the bottom of this hole, so it goes down through that slot so this bolt can't rotate once it's in position. And then we've just got two nuts with a wave washer in between. Our little lock washer, and then our other nut. There again, we're not going to tighten these down. And the way this goes together is we've got two more washers with a wave washer in between, and they're going to go down here. If we can keep from losing them. It's going to go down on here like this. Then we've got another flat washer. I'll have to go down a little bit farther, it looks like. That will go down there so it sits like that. Another washer on top, and this will lock the assembly together. So we've got our adjustment for the elevation between the bottom pulley. No, that's our adjustment between our big pulley on the side and our motor. So that's the way that goes together. So next things will be, I have to touch up my paint again. Next things will be come up with fiber washers, figure out where our collars go. A little bit too close back here for this to all set the way it's supposed to. And we're still just sitting on rollers here for to move the bed around. There we go. Okay, and then the way our main shaft will go through, and it hangs by this one right here. And if we remember why this shaft was seized to this casting, so the collars were all screwed up the way they were situated. So the way it's going to go back together, I do believe, is we're going to have a collar on either side of this, which will align us side to side, and then we're going to have a collar on the outboard ends of each of these, which will hold this shaft centered in the cabinet itself. Okay, so fiber washers, and then figure out our spacing on this stuff. And see, we've still got a little bit of play. We may, there again, this is where we'll do adjustments. I think we may have room to put a washer in between these two castings here. I don't know that it makes any difference which side we do it on, but I believe there'll be room for spacers. That'll take up some of the side-to-side slop. I don't know that that really hurts anything, but as long as we've got our pulleys and everything aligned, it may not be a bad thing to have a little bit of play in there and let the pulleys self-align too, to a certain degree. So we'll look at that a little bit closer when we get that far. So maybe there will be a shim in between those castings, and maybe there won't. So anyway, there's the major portion of that. The rest of it's just getting the pulleys and things mounted. I got the other two shafts laying down here, and other than some thrust collars, I think we've got everything we need for this. I can go ahead and assemble this bottom one. We've been over to our local Ace Hardware, and they happen to have fiber washers for me. Nice heavy fiber washers. So we're going to put 2 on each one. So I can go ahead and assemble this bottom shaft and get the pulleys on it, because it will all be stationary then, or it'll be completely assembled when I have to do it. The upper one I'm going to slide together, and I'll probably affix a pulley to the shaft, but other than that I won't put the center pulley in or lock in the collar on the outside, because we don't have our belts, and how it's got to go on when the headstock goes on. Those are actually just a little bit too big, which they're the size that was on there. They're actually smaller than the size that was on there. So that's the way it is. Yeah, these are actually a little bit small. Okay, but we still got lots of clearance. So that goes on, and then this pulley goes on here. But we have to have the, let's see, we got 2 sets, 1 set screw there, and 1 set screw there, and nothing right over our keyway. So let's go ahead, I believe that's the right one for there. Okay, so this is going to go on, and how far? Got a couple of these keyways they've done some goofy stuff with, so I want to be sure and at least try and get the keyways where they're going to go. go. Okay, so are we just going to run them up flush? Put another one on this side. That's going to go up, looks like all the way too, so we can take another full-size key and put it there. Our Allen wrenches here. Would have been easier to put on the larger pulley first, since they go in at an angle, and then put on the outer ones, or the step pulley. I'll wait to grease these until I do final setup on them and adjust them that way. Now this one will go on there. Let's see, these were kind of chewed up a little bit. I don't know exactly what the deal is with them, but Looks like somebody probably didn't have them lined up quite right, and they went ahead and crammed them in there one way or the other. Okay, now the thing that's confusing me is why we have a key that was offset. So, and I guess it doesn't make a bit of difference. I realize this is not the most exciting thing in the world, but it is part of the assembly, so if we're going to show it all, pretty much we probably need to and that socket does not, or that set screw does not fit. That one's too small. And now we've got it where it won't come out. There we go. Okay, so we'll find a larger set screw. We got another one that goes there. This one will sit on here. We're not going to tighten this one down at all here. We're just going to put our keyway in there, or our key in there. That will sit on there like that. That will tighten down wherever it aligns with the rest of the belts and the headstock. And we're probably going to replace this collar. This collar's been shaved down for some reason and is all goofy. So we're going to lightly tighten that just to hold it in place so it doesn't slide out and fall off. We could potentially still lose that. Okay. So that's as far as we're going to assemble that. Now I haven't cleaned this up. This is the adjustment rod that hooks into the cabinet on the top and runs our belt tension up and down for the drive belts. So we're not going to put it in yet. So I think we're going to go ahead and try and hang this in place. We can slide those collars in. This whole assembly will slide in and then kind of cocks a little bit to get slid out into position here. So let's move the camera around to where we've got some sort of a view down here, and then we'll see if we can't set this in place. Okay, we're looking up and inside the cabinet on the side. I realize that's not the best view either, and I'm probably going to block it when we start setting stuff in, but let's see what we can do here. Oh, and it's gained a fair amount of weight too along the way. see, let's go ahead and make sure this all sits in the way it's supposed to. So this is our threaded end down here that our set screw goes in. Now I believe we can set the whole thing up into place like that and slide one end in like that and then back over to where it aligns. This may be a interesting proposition. I bet we don't get to see much of anything here when we do this, but I'm sorry about that. I'll have to track down the set screws that go in here. I don't have them in place. And this baby more than I can handle down inside there. What I'll probably do is get it set inside and probably go and get a couple of ratchet straps and just drop them down from up above and then raise it up into place. That's what we'll probably do. Let's see if we can't get it inside. Oh yeah, that's not going to be a project at all. Okay, let me go find a ratchet strap. So what I think we're going to try and do here just drop this down through there. Let's take out that key. Let's see if we can't run this right around here like this. And just throw a couple of loops around there just to make it look like it's going to hold on there. We put that there. Oop, we're going to have to block it up and do it again, aren't we? Huh. Okay, we grab a couple blocks. How about that? Almost like it was made for it. this side's got to slide in first. Just like that. I'm going to come just a little bit more. Okay, that's it right there is where it's going to sit. And now what I need to do before I do anything else is find Allen screws to go in there. So we can come back down and take a look at it here. That's the way it's actually going to sit. I got collars here on the outside, and then we've got collars that go on the other side of the casting, and that will center it this way. So probably I'll go ahead off camera, since we're pretty much done with this now. I will go ahead and find Allen screws or set screws to go in the outer collars. Now I've got the set screws here. We'll probably just replace them with new ones rather than me digging through to try and find the ones that were in them. And we'll go ahead and put them back in, and that will lock the shaft in place until we get to the end. And once we get that in the end, why then we'll go back and figure out our set screw that goes in the back end. And after that, we're pretty much done with this. We've got to mount the motor, and then until we get the headstock mounted to figure out our belt length. Since I added those 3/8 gaskets or pieces of rubber underneath each of the feet, I want to put the headstock back on before I disassemble it and verify that the belts are going to be long enough for adjustment. And in this interim, while we'll go ahead, I'll clean up that other bracket that mounts here, and this is what adjusts this elevation up and down for our belt tension to the headstock. And then we'll come back and take a look at it then. They're not that complicated, but there's enough parts and they sit, you know, in enough strategic positions that it can be kind of a pain in the ass. Otherwise, looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. You know, I'll have to clean up a few things. I'll lube it up once I get everything positioned. I don't see any sense in getting me and everybody else or everything else all greasy while I'm still working on it. So before we run it, we'll grease everything up real good, clean it up. We've got to get new belts for on everything. And I still got the old belts that would probably be functional on here, but and this is, if anybody's looking now, according to this one, this is a A26, and that's the one that goes on here, that mounts right there, I believe. I've got to get my lock screws and everything that go on here to lock that in position. Okay guys, now let's see if this is going to focus. I'm looking at the end of the cabinet. This is the headstock end of the cabinet. The thing we're looking at right here is the shaft that supports all that undercarriage. Now what I was talking about for the set screw that's supposed to hold it in place, and this was gone before, if we zoom in real close here, well, hopefully it'll focus up on that right hand side right here. You can see there's a hole that's drilled and tapped, and it's halfway in the cabinet and halfway in the shaft. And I've already got a set screw here to go in it, and let's see if we can't get it situated in here without me screwing stuff up too bad. And it's kind of ragged in here. Who knows what they've done over the years, but if we look real close, hopefully that will show up there. And that's what we're seeing right there, is that hole is drilled and tapped. So it catches part of both of them. Now on my other cabinet, I believe it's actually cut at an angle like this, or drilled and tapped at an angle. But on this one it looks to be straight in. And we're just taking a, I believe, well, we were taking until we dropped it, a 5/16 set screw that looks just like that. And it's going to go in there just like that. And now those castings will rotate on the shaft rather than the shaft rotating in the cabinet. Switch Allen wrenches here. Huh. It appears to be pulling the shaft through. We'll have to look and make sure it's not. Oh no, I think it's a fine. Yeah, no, that centers up. Let me look at it inside real quickly before we change anything else. Yeah, and that's locked in place now. So yeah, that's the way that looks. So now that shaft is basically locked in place. Can't get back here at least a little bit. And that's the way the underdrive unit hangs in there. That will hopefully run nice and smooth and true. I did have to disassemble it again. I forgot there was a collar here. That's where our other collar was. I think before, from looking at the marks on this, the collar was probably set on this side, but I put it back on this side the way the drawing shows. So that's the way that goes together. And realistically, I need this mounting here before I let it on down, but let's see what it looks like when we take the tension off of it. Yeah, see, it'll hang way back down. So for it to hang with any semblance of where it's supposed to be, and see, this is just a bolt they had stuffed in there. We'll have to change that out and do some sort of a decent bracket for that. So this will get disassembled and redone before we really do anything. And this will have to all be cleaned up, but we can see maybe how it's going to fit together. Put all of these back on, but we will put a nut on here enough to hold it in place. Actually, I guess we'll start these other two just so we know where they go. If you can, put pieces back where they belong, because otherwise you'll lose track of them and won't know where they go. So now if we let this down, actually, I'm going to leave that there for the moment because we're going to use that again later on to tension stuff, I think. And we've got to put our little key back in here. I think. Sorry, I'm in the way. That will sit on there like that, some way, shape, or form. So now that's where we're going to end it right there. That relieves tension on our belt, so we can change our belts. Belt would go on there like yay. And of course we don't have tension set. I do have to track down that nut and bolt. I'll probably do that before I go in while I'm thinking about it. It's in one of my little bags of parts. So at least that's where we're at for today. Hopefully find that a little bit useful if you're rebuilding one, got one in pieces you're trying to put back together, something like that. Anyway, comment suggestions, guys, leave in the comment section for me below. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.